a quick YouTube live weather update as our storm system is rolling through. We have seen impactful or travel impacts, accumulating snow up across northwest Montana. This is starting to spread into more of the area this morning, and we're going to continue to see some issues on the roads as we go throughout the rest of the day and into the afternoon and evening hours. So I want to just, again, jump in, do a little update, give you a heads up of what you can expect, especially if you're doing some Black Friday shopping, getting out and doing a little bit of that today, but also looking ahead to the weekend and what we can expect. So if you can give me about 30 seconds to a minute, I'll get everything here working behind the scenes. I will spin the camera back around and show you the looping radar over 3 hours, kind of give you a sense of how this moisture has been spreading into the area. We initially saw one wave move through last night. That's what's moving into the area from Cutbank over towards Glasgow. That moved into northwest Montana. That brought some accumulating snowfall to places like Kalispell, Eureka, Hungry Horse overnight, and has led to continued travel impacts. There's been some decent snowfall up across the Flathead Valley so far, and we have been dealing with those power outages as well. That's been a bit of an issue up there into the Flathead Valley and surrounding areas, with hundreds of customers without power. Now we are going to see more of these issues with the snow spreading further south with that cold front that's going to be moving into the region, or that's going to be moving into more of the region over the next few hours. All right. Let's see. Things are running just a tad slow here, so you can give me just a few more seconds. We should be in good shape. All right, that's working there. All right, now I've got everything working here like I planned on. So I know we'll get a few more people working their way in as we go throughout this update. But if you have any questions or comments, certainly feel free to ask those, and I'll try and answer them to the best that I can. And we'll try and make this as prompt of an update as I can, so you can go out and enjoy the rest of your day. But thanks for spending a little bit of time for your morning with me as I go about what we can expect. So, really our main focus for this storm system, here's our three big things that we're tracking through the weekend. With this storm system, we're going to see widespread snowfall, especially for northwest, well, really I'll just say for the entirety of the area outside of really far southwestern Montana, from say Wisdom and Dillon south, where we start to see a lot more of the moisture start to fall apart. We're not going to see quite the same impacts, but elsewhere, widespread snowfall is expected. We could even see some intense snow squalls for west central and southwestern Montana as we get into the early afternoon and evening. That's really due to the combination of the Pacific moisture overriding this Arctic air that's settling in place. Similar to, I'll say it's kind of similar to what we saw back in January, where we saw a couple of those big storms that dropped feet of snow in places like the Bitterroot Valley as well as up into the Flathead Valley. This storm's not quite as strong as that, but it's the same kind of setup where we have that overriding effect where it really helps to enhance the snowfall totals right close to that boundary, right close to that front, and that's exactly what's happening, the Arctic front sagging south. The other issue with this is that we're seeing the flash freeze. We're seeing those temperatures fall rapidly behind the front, so you're going from, I'll use Missoula as an example, we could see issues later on, where right now we're at, say, 34 to 36 degrees, and we cool down into the 20s over the span of about an hour and a half once that cold front moves through. When that happens, all the wet roads become snow cover, or they'll become very icy, and then you get the snow on top of that. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch with the cold temperatures freezing the roads, and then you get the snow on top of it, and it leads to really a recipe for very nasty travel, some of which we've already seen. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit more detail here in just a second. As for the Arctic air, once the system begins to pull out tonight and into Saturday, we're going to see those overnight lows, single digits above and below zero tonight, and then single digits in teens as we head throughout the rest of the weekend. But we will see a little system move through for Saturday. Most areas, I think, stay dry, but that's going to be essentially a reinforcing push of cold air. So here's a current look at conditions across the area. It's a cloudy, it's a gloomy day. Up in northwest Montana, it's all snow into west central portions of the state, Missoula specifically looking at it. We've been seeing the rain so far. That will likely transition over to snow at some point. It's just a matter of when that happens, more as compared to a matter of if it happens. And we're starting to see a little bit of light snow moving into southwestern Montana. I've seen a few snowflakes here on our Bozeman camera. This is from TV Mountain. We're starting to get, we've seen snow on that camera for most of the morning. Let me bounce over to the Butte camera on that bottom left to kind of give a sense of what we're seeing there. Some fresh snow out there. Not seeing as heavy of snow just yet, but like I said, we've got time to watch that. That will change, and we'll continue to track that. Now, speaking of the road conditions, I am going to try and pull the camera over to the other side, and I'm going to do an update from the MDT map and just kind of give you a sense of where we're seeing the worst conditions, and I'll show you some of those cameras as well, because there are a few, I'll say, pretty tricky spots when it comes to travel. And hopefully, you know, for folks who've traveled for Thanksgiving, they're still just in town today, not having to do any travel to go home today. And if you do have to, I would say probably best to, or at least it would be easiest for you to postpone that until Saturday, just as road conditions will start to improve a little bit. At least we won't be dealing with the blowing snow, the gusty winds, and the accumulating snow. But we will still be dealing with slick roads. There's no two ways around that. So let me get this into position a little bit, and I'll try and zoom this in just a hair so we can get a bit closer. So I'll start up here in northwest Montana. So all of these areas that you're seeing with the blue lines, like on US 93, Highway 37, US 2, this is all snow-covered roads. So Libby, Happy's Inn, up towards Eureka, Trago, Alney, Stryker, we're dealing with those snow-covered roads. Into the Flathead Valley, you're seeing more of these, I'll say, darker blues and pinks. So US 2, as well as into the Highway 93 corridors. We're talking icy roads that are being reported in this area, and that's no surprise with the snow that we've seen so far. Let me pull up a couple of those cameras, and I'll try and make those large so we can see. So here's from the Blue Moon camera, north of Kalispell, west of Columbia Falls. This is an old image from 5 a.m., so this is not updated in a while, but that's what we were looking at this morning. You can see kind of the slushiness on the roads. There. Let's take it down to Montana Highway 35, and here's a look from just a few minutes ago. And you can see a lot of that moisture on the road still, a fair amount of accumulation on the grassy surfaces, so there's going to be slick travel up there all throughout the day, even as the moisture slowly begins to taper off. And here's a look at Hungry Horse up along US 2. Much the same type of view. So if you have to travel, take it slow, and if you can avoid traveling today, probably is going to be for the best. But this is looking over the bridge that goes over the Flathead River in that area. Let's take it up over to the Essex area. That's not updated, and this may be partially due to the power outages that have been going on all across the Flathead Valley and up through this area. So that's been another issue as we've been dealing with off and on power outages through the day. And those started last night. Taking a little bit further down, we'll head down to Flathead Lake. This is over on the west side of the lake at Elmo. and we're seeing that snow continuing to accumulate there. We saw that transition over from rain to snow throughout the morning. Right now, looking at those slushy conditions, a little bit of snow cover starting to show up here. Going back to the other side of the lake on Montana Highway 35, and I'd say the conditions are a little bit worse over here on the east side of the lake, with a bit more snow cover ongoing over there. So it really is just a repeat of, what I was mentioning before. Just be prepared. We're going to see some rough conditions on the roads. Here's Evero Hill, US 93, north of Y Junction and northwest of Missoula. Very much the same, with that snow starting to come down even more so. You can see the roads, the road conditions there. That's going to continue to be something that we watch. Lolo Pass, much the same. Earlier, this was completely snow covered. There have been a few plows that have gone through here to help clear that up. But there's the Lolo Lookout Pass. I mean, really, it's just a rinse and repeat type of look on the road conditions. So be prepared. This is what it's going to be looking like all throughout the day. Then we get a little bit further south, and this is looking into the Bonner area. This is Interstate 90. The roads are just wet right now. We're just waiting for that cold air to settle in and transition the rain over to snow. And it could come down pretty heavily once that does happen. But you see those temperatures, it's a little small. But 35 there at the S-curves there between Missoula and Lolo. 33 at Bonner. So that just goes to show you how close we are to seeing that change over. And going to the Greeno Hill camera just up on 200, you transition over to snow pretty quick. That's only the span of, say, 10 to 20 miles. And we're already fully into snow once we get up here closer to the areas closer to Potomac. One area I do want to pay extra attention to is McDonald Pass. This is probably where we're seeing the absolute worst conditions right now. Severe driving conditions have been reported. The temperature there, 14 degrees. And when I pull this camera up, which it's doing a weird thing on that one, but look at the, you can still get the sense of what we're seeing, even though it's doing this weird pink hue on the camera, but you can see the road and the drifts on the road. So not a good time to be driving over McDonald Pass. Haven't seen any cars over there, so that's a good sign. Hopefully that stays that way, but it gives you the sense of what we could see, especially as you get closer to that front and that where the front and that moisture plume really start to connect. Starting to see more snow cover down here towards the Deer Lodge area. Butte, very similar type of story. Homestake Pass, for the most part, does seem like it's in pretty decent shape right now. We have seen some light snow there this morning, but we could see those conditions worsen. I would say we'll likely see those conditions worsen later on. And then into southwest Montana, for the most part, we're just looking at dry roads, maybe a little bit of wetness on the roads, but nothing too impactful. And then one last spot to look at, Montana Highway 1 up over Georgetown Lake, where we're overall just looking at wet conditions on the road. I bet it's more likely slushy up in that part of the region. So that's the long story short the long story when it comes to those road conditions. But northwest Montana, we're seeing those pretty rough right now. West central, southwest Montana will get more involved with that active weather and with the more impactful type of travel impacts later on today. And that could occur, relatively soon, especially as we get into places like Missoula, where we're right on the edge of that cold front passing through with that temperature at 33 there in Bonner. So that could change pretty quickly over the next 1 to 2 hours. So be aware of that as you're heading out for your Black Friday plans. And like I mentioned, and I've said it already, if you can stay in, maybe not the worst thing in the world. So here's a look at radar. Again, there's the storm system starting to, I'll say, clear from northwest to southeast. Northwest Montana, we're going to start to quiet down in a big way. as we go throughout the rest of the morning. Places like Eureka, Libby, Troy, maybe a few light snow showers lingering on for the next couple of hours, but for the most part, we are starting to dry out. And even Kalispell, I think overall we should see a lessening trend on this moisture. You can kind of see even right on the northern edge. This is about the point the radar ends, so there is likely still some snowfall up in this area, but in general, the heaviest of the activity is now further south. What you're seeing here, Polson, down towards Pablo, Ronan, St. Ignatius, Arlis, Seeley Lake. These are the areas where we're seeing that heaviest snowfall right now, and with that cold air that's starting to overlap with it. The Highway 200 or the Interstate 90 corridor, you're going to be kind of in that mix of rain and snow. St. Regis seems to be about the point where that transitions, so as you get towards DeBorgia, Haugen, it goes over to all snow, but for St. Regis, Superior, back down here towards Alberton, we're right in that rain-snow mix, and then you get into the Missoula Valley, and it transitions back over to all rain down, as well as for the Bitterroot Valley. And like I said, this is really the way where we're just going to be watching to see how quickly this transitions over to snow. And that'll determine how much snow we do see in places like Missoula, Florence, maybe even down in towards Hamilton, where we're going to see less and less the further south we go as that warm air stays in place. So Hamilton, we may finally transition over to snow later on this afternoon, but I think for the most part, this is going to be rain for the majority of this event. Now, as we get further off to the east, the cold air is a little more entrenched already. I'd say the cold front is sitting roughly in this zone right in here. So Butte, Bozeman, we're already starting to see those temperatures gradually fall, and we're just waiting on the moisture to get there. So once that happens, we will see that occur. Later on today, though, as the dry air starts to settle in behind this storm system, we could see a few snow squalls start to develop. So you can get those narrow bands of some intense snowfall rates, gusty winds 20 to 40 miles per hour, and that could lead to near whiteout conditions on the roads. It's just another reason why maybe not the best idea to be traveling for today. And if you absolutely have to travel, make sure you have your emergency kit in your car, and also make sure to give yourself plenty of time. Take it very slow. But again, my advice would be to just, if you have to be on the roads, just stay local. If you have to do any long distance traveling, save it for tomorrow if you absolutely can. But the potential for some snow squalls will exist for west central and southwestern Montana. One note, and we'll look at this on Future Tracker here in a minute, we could see some redevelopment of some moisture back into west central Montana later on tonight. Models tend to do a bad job on picking up on this type of feature, but we'll keep a close eye on it. Now, we do have the winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings that are in place. These for the northwest and west central portions of the state. These are in effect until this afternoon and evening. Specifics on those, let me get those pulled up really quick. It's taking me a minute to get to where I need to be. So for those in the West Glacier region, those run through 2 p.m., that winter storm warning, so a couple more hours on that. Most of the rest of these advisories and warnings run through 5 p.m. this afternoon, and these down in southwest Montana, including the Madison River Valley, Gallatin Valley, and a lot of the Missouri headwaters. These are actually new winter weather advisories that have recently gone into effect. We're going to see those running through 5 a.m. on Saturday before this storm system starts to pull out. The heaviest moisture, again, is going to be along the divide and then across north central and into northeastern Montana, where we could be talking anywhere from about 3 to 8 inches of total accumulation. Marias Pass, we've likely seen more than that, or we'll see probably more in that 4 to 12 inch range when all is said and done, but you are on the backside of the heaviest moisture. So didn't want that to start rolling just yet. Future Tracker's done a good job on the placement of this moisture. We're seeing the rain down in the Bitterroot-Missoula valleys. That will transition over at some point over the next few hours, especially towards Missoula. Bitterroot Valley may still hang on to rain for most of the morning. And you notice how, as we get closer to lunchtime, Kalispell, we were pretty quiet for the snowfall. Missoula, we're going to continue to see that snow in place through, say, 2 to 4 o'clock before things start to become more isolated in nature. Butte, similar story, but we're going to hang on to more of that moisture in southwest Montana into the afternoon and early evening. And honestly, I was mentioning that potential for snow squalls. I think from about noon until, say, 6, 7 o'clock. That's going to be our window for those, that we could see some of those issues. Now, I did mention there is one other feature that I want to just point out that models don't do a very good job on. The National Weather Service hinted, or National Weather Service in Missoula hinted on this, that when we get the dry air on the backside of a system like this, there tends to be at least a window where you can get the redevelopment of some narrow snow bands. Some of these only, say, 5 to 10 miles across, that can sit over an area for quite a while. So we may see something like that develop later on, 1 or 2 of those types of bands for the late afternoon and into the evening. So even though forecast models are showing Missoula, for example, pretty quiet as we get into 7 o'clock, there is the potential that we could see something redevelop and linger on for a while that could drop another, inch, 2 inches of snow if it sits on the same spot for an hour, hour and a half, just on the way that the dynamics of this system tend to shape up. Now, as we get into the overnight period, really, I think as we get closer to, say, 10, 11 o'clock, other than a few isolated flurries, light snow showers, we're seeing that Arctic air settle in, and we're going to start to quiet down overnight. We're going to be talking clearing skies and some very cold temperatures on the way. But then we get into Saturday, and here comes another system. It's a much weaker system, but may bring a reinforcing push of some snowfall into west central and southwestern Montana for Saturday evening and Sunday. But I think for the most part, this is going to be pretty isolated in nature, and it's just going to be a reinforcing push of some cold air. Now, as for additional snowfall, I'll even add the Saturday system. I think for our valleys outside of, for our valleys, we're talking a dusting upwards to about 4 inches of snowfall. Kalispell, you are the exception because you are on the backside of this storm. We're going to see those snowfall totals where we're at now probably be about where we finalize for this storm system. The one exception, and this has been a consistent thing, Bozeman, models have been locking on some higher snowfall totals in your area, so I still think 1 to 4 is going to be common, but some localized totals maybe in that 3 to 6 inch range can't be ruled out. So that'll be one we have to watch out for. Just the way that the flow is going to be out of the north and west, that tends to pump a lot more moisture right into the Gallatin Valley. So something to keep a close eye on today. But for the most part, again, valleys probably dusting upwards to 4 inches of additional snowfall between now and Sunday morning. As for our passes, I'll do the same thing. We're going to be looking at a very similar type of setup. We're looking at probably about 1 to 4 inches for most of our passes along the divide and to the west, and then also models have been a little bit more aggressive towards Lolo Pass just due to that Saturday system. So I think in general, we're going to be looking at that 1 to 4 inch type of total for most of our passes, though Homestake Bozeman, we could see some slightly heavier totals. But the long story short in all of this, just be prepared for those travel impacts. I've said it a lot over the last 20 minutes. So if you can just avoid traveling today, that's probably the best option for you. Looking ahead to this weekend, though, it's going to be a cold one. No two ways around it. We're going to see those high temperatures into the 20s and 30s, maybe getting into the low 30s as we get into Sunday there in Missoula, but elsewhere we're talking 20s. For tonight, we're going to be seeing those overnight lows into the single digits above and below zero. We will likely see a few below zero temperatures tonight in some of our higher elevation valleys, places like West Yellowstone, maybe even up towards, say, Pole Bridge, Seeley Lake. We're going to be close. Bozeman Butte 1 for that overnight low tonight. And then we'll slowly start to see temperatures moderate just a little bit. But again, we're talking high temperatures anywhere from about 5 to 10 degrees below average as we head into this weekend. Those overnight lows staying in the single digits and teens. It isn't until we get to the, say, middle parts of next week that temperatures get pretty close to average there in the lower and mid 30s. And we then trend even warmer than that as things stand right now. We're likely going to be looking at above average temperatures to close out next week, but active weather will likely be sticking around all the way through then. And one note about Saturday, if you're heading out to the Montana Tech NAIA second round playoff game, just be prepared. It's going to be a very cold game, so you'll want to be bundling up for that game again, that rivalry game against Carroll College. So this is where I'm going to wrap it up. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to ask those really quick in the chat section, and I will try and answer them. And if not, then we'll fully wrap it up. Just kind of the key takeaways: widespread precipitation, widespread rainfall, or widespread snowfall is expected today. Missoula, we are still rain right now, but that should transition over to snow over the next 1 to 3 hours. Travel impacts are already ongoing across northwest Montana. These will expand into more of west central and southwestern portions of the state with that cold front. Flash freeze with the wet roads freezing very quickly will be our biggest concern. But then also the gusty winds 20 to 40 miles per hour combining with moderate to heavy snowfall could lead to near whiteout conditions with some intense snow squalls. Don't know if those are going to develop, but that is a possibility. I know we had some snow squalls earlier on in the week, so we could see a repeat performance of that down into southwest Montana, places like Bozeman, Butte, maybe even as far back to the west as Missoula, maybe as we get into the late afternoon and evening. We're just going to have to watch and see how that is, but be prepared for rapidly changing road and weather conditions as you're going out for your Black Friday plans today. But again, thanks for spending a little bit of your day to start your day with me, and I will see you all on the next one. Certainly with the snow out there, feel free to share your photos and videos at nbcmontana.com/chime in, and I'll see you all on the next one. Have a safe day, have a, stay warm, and have a safe and warm weekend as well. And a late happy Thanksgiving to you all as well. So with NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Coombs.